ghosts and ghouls. Today I have a slightly different creepypasta for you. This one has a bit of a surprise ending. And hopefully you enjoy this ending. I know I do. This is the genetic experiment. I have no clue who it's by again. They didn't leave who it was by. But I hope you enjoy. It said that I was something that never should have existed in this world. An experiment made to do nothing else but to prove that modern-day science could never be shut down. To show that humans have extended far beyond their own expectations. To show, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. As I awoke in a strange laboratory, I saw several humans jumping with excitement. They immediately began writing down information in their notebooks. They opened my test tube and began recording my own physical information. They came closer with each different examination, so close to the point where I could feel the heat from their sweat of their bodies. Whatever I was, they must have worked for years to create me. I then saw a creature sprawled out on the table, unconscious, with several scratches on it. Next to it, I saw a tray with tweezers and a microscope. I was curious about this creature, but before I could even begin to see what it was, a scientist noticed my curiosity, grabbed my shoulders. "Don't even think about it." The voice sent chills down my spine. It sounded like that of a madman, a voice of sheer insanity and insomnia. They began scrambling around to collect their recorded data on me, on both me and the other creature, and immediately rushed out of the building. I was left alone with the creature, curiosity, and a small amount of fear filling my body. I walked up to it and stepped in a strange pile of goo. Looking under my foot, I saw a small purple blob with lifeless eyes dropping down its face. I jumped and threw it, only to see it drag down the wall and slither behind the test tubes. The scientist had forgotten one of the papers, and I picked it up so I could see what was recorded. After several years of performing genetic experimental tests, we have finally reached our goal. We shall name our new creation. I heard the door open and immediately dropped the paper. The scientist returned, this time with an elderly scientist and a younger man in a suit, who I assumed to be the leader of the project. "Oh, no, do you not see what we've done?" exclaimed the elderly scientist. The boss chuckled. "Of course," he replied. "We've created our path to victory." I felt as though I had no speech, so I gave out a low growl without reason. I didn't have a clue who the man in the suit was, but I could sense the evil in his heart. The older scientist trying to prevent anything that could go wrong. The boss came up to me and put a hand on my shoulder. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say a word, I tackled him, feeling as though that was my only defense. Angered by how his creation did not obey, he gave his scientist a command, and they immediately took me down into what appeared to be a basement. They strapped me to a chair and popped 4 discs into a machine, in which they started strapped to my head. I felt myself getting stronger, yet weaker in an odd way, almost as if every time I felt more powerful, I forgot a simple task, such as tackling or shouting. After this process, the younger administrator started feeding me unlabeled blue bitter candies, 70 of them, forced down my throat. I began to feel more powerful and independent with each candy given to me. And as the 70th and final candy was forced to me, they released me from my prison. I looked around at the scientists around me, looking at how these candies affected my physical ability and strength. I felt invincible, as though nothing could stop me, as though I was created to be God himself. Before the scientists could do one final experiment on me, I looked one of them, and almost immediately he held his head while his ears began to bleed uncontrollably. He died only a few moments later. As the other scientists tried to mob me, I simply drew several sharp objects in the shape of a star out of my hand, brutally cutting their arms. One scientist successfully stabbed me, and I simply put my hand over the fresh wound, and it healed instantly. I killed him, the same way the first scientist. My creators fled, leaving only the young administrator. "You do this to me?" I thought to myself. He gasped and looked around. "Who said that?" he asked, then looked at me. "It was you? You're psychic, I see." He grinned after the statement, but the grin simply faded to seriousness. "I'm aware I can't keep you here. You've made you too strong." He walked out of the building without another word. The creature, who I was based off of, opened its eyes. I walked over to it and picked it up. "You're safe with me," I told it telepathically. The creature closed its eyes as I walked out of the lab. I took one last look at it and destroyed it with my star. I let the now conscious creature fly free and scatter the documents around a mansion. I took one last look at my new name before I too decided to take my own freedom. I walked and swam for miles and eventually isolated myself inside of a cave, leaving a warning that I was there and was not a force to be reckoned with. A bodyguard soon volunteered himself to prevent anyone from entering the cave. 10 years later, during a cold night in my cave, I heard footsteps echoing from the entrance. I wondered who would be here and how they got past my bodyguards. So I created creatures of my own based off of the other creatures I've seen during my journey here. I even sent the genetic piles of goo to go throughout the cave to scare them away. But the boy was brave. Eventually, he reached me. He summoned his own creature to weaken me. Some of these monsters even stopped my mobility. The last thing I remembered from the battle was him throwing a sphere at my head. And then darkness. A couple of days later, I awoke inside a strange world. I was then summoned in front of a large blue dog. Before I could do anything, the boar threw a purple ball at the dog and it vanished inside the ball. I'll never forget the last thing the boy in the red cap yelled before I once again returned into the strange world. Mewtwo, return. Hey there, my ghoulies. Sorry about the short intro. I couldn't say anything without completely ruining the secret ending of this story. So how many of you saw this as a Pokemon story or even saw that it would be Mewtwo at the end? I did not upon reading this. And I had to read it on this because I didn't know if anyone else would notice. But I think it's a pretty good, dang good story on Mewtwo's point of view, and it's rare to see that. But tell me what you think, and remember to like and subscribe to me. I need it. This is me, Warlock Boo, saying I hope to be spooking y'all later. Bye. I found you!